Welcome to Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business. The one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you. This is the story that defines the very character and nature of an organization. At WordWrite, we call this your capital S story. In each episode of Storylines Live, we feature guests who have great insights on business storytelling, who can share their experiences and key learnings to help you and your organization do a better job of sharing your capital S story to drive remarkable results. In this episode, we're honored to have Maré Morozowicz as our guest. Renee has a fascinating story. I would consider you a geek, Renee. We'll see what you think. Um, but somebody who went to school for computer science and knows how to do development and can teach it, and has had roles including business intelligence developer, SQL developer. I don't even remember what SQL stands for. You can maybe tell us. You've been a programmer. Um, Today, you run a shop in which you help people with their online presence, most specifically their websites. And we want to talk to you about your story and how you wound up doing what you're doing today. Before we do that, welcome to Storylines Live.
Hi, thanks, Paul. It's great to be here.
Did I miss anything important in your bio that you think our audience would benefit from knowing about you?
Not specifically. I think we'll dive into the details,
Okay.
during the conversation. So I think we're good.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Renee, we always ask our guests on Storylines Live about their capital S story because we want to know at this point in the evolution of your business and the work you do, which of those four answers to those questions I gave are most important to you? Why would somebody buy from you, work for you, invest in you, or partner with you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think at this point, buy from me. I think as a solo business owner, it can be difficult to, get my story out there and connect with people, to let them know that I can help them with their business. So that's, I think, the season of business that I'm in right now.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of seasons of business, one of the things that intrigued me about your story, and of course, we share a mutual connection, and our content manager, Tara DeRazio, was what she shared with me about how you pivoted your business. So, can you tell our audience a little bit about this sort of epiphany you had a couple years ago and how you came to do what you do today?
Yeah, for sure. So it took me a really long time to kind of figure out how to pivot or what to do exactly. And I think that at least at the time, it wasn't so common for people to run an online business, not nearly as common as it is today. So I like to joke, it took me 16 years to figure it out. I started, working for local companies here in Pittsburgh in 2001 and, worked for several companies for a couple years here, a couple years there. And I really I enjoyed the work, but I didn't always enjoy maybe the circumstances or the surroundings or things like that. And at one job in particular, I had some downtime. So I had more time to think about it and focus on it. And, I really love learning. I think that's important, to share learning also with my clients, which has helped me be successful. And I took a class online and, one thing kind of led to another. And also from Tara's help too, because she had been freelancing for, years before that too.
Yes.
And, this path started to kind of slowly unfold before me, so I was curious, I was interested. And, I kept taking steps in a certain direction, not knowing really that that's where I was going to end up. But I've, found a lot more happiness, and success and, time flexibility and freedom, pursuing this. I do leverage some of my computer science skills, although, not a ton. But, I think that, being able to help small businesses too, as a small business owner, it's really difficult to know all the things. You can't know all the things. And so
Right.
being able to help people with their websites, their online presence, I feel can be, really kind of like a load off of them so that they can focus on what they do,
Mhm.
better. So,
Absolutely. Stephen Covey, we all have an area of core competence, right?
mhm.
And a small business owner, unless they are in your industry, is not really going to be the best expert at online presence, right? So
Mhm.
hire an expert, right?
Right.
Now, with somebody with a kind of background that you have, what was it that led you to say, this specific sharpened focus is what I want to do?
So, like I said, it took a while to figure that out. There wasn't, like again to mention Tara, she's always known that she wanted to be a writer. I
Yes.
definitely did
Yes.
not always know that the things that I have done are the things that I wanted to do or would be good
Right.
at or like.
Right.
So, I find those people amazing. I wish I was one of them.
Right.
Um, so it was I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do like a complete 180. I knew that I wasn't going to go from being a programmer, software developer, intelligence developer, whatever I was doing, to being a massage therapist or a nurse, or, I wasn't going to be able to do that. So
Right.
I needed something that was close to what I was doing, but different enough that it was interesting to learn
Mhm.
and that I would be able to do it in a different context, right? So I wouldn't have
Sure.
to go to any specific place, at 9 o'clock and sit there until 5 o'clock. Like, I knew I needed some different, like I said, circumstances, around the job. So, just by looking a little bit and kind of, you know, seeing what was out there
Mhm.
and what piqued my interest and what was close enough to what I was doing that I wouldn't feel so uncomfortable, like I said, doing a complete 180.
Sure. Sure. Okay, so how does that personal story of yours help you in your day-to-day business with your clients?
So I'm not, at the time, those jobs were difficult in a way, right? Because they were not a great fit for me, but I did learn a lot from them. So, I build websites, I maintain websites for clients. In that world, you'll find a lot of people who are like, oh, well, I can just have my nephew do my website, which is perfectly fine. But because I've come from this background and because I've been doing this for a while, it's like the plumber who can come and fix the complicated looking thing in 5 minutes
Right.
because they've been doing it for a long time. So, based on what I've been doing, I've built up this sort of like body of knowledge. I have really excellent troubleshooting skills. Um, I don't know if you remember, there was I don't know if it was Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers. It was one of these things is not like the other. Like that is
Yes.
my
Yes.
very core, like I can, okay, this one is right. And that's super helpful in a technology space where you are trying to figure out, okay, why was this working? Why is this no longer working? Or what do we need to do to fix this? So just using those skills, and it was just kind of like a path, like I said, like over time, kind of, each thing I didn't really know where I was going to get to, and honestly I don't know where I'm going to be 10 years 20 years from now either,
None
because
of us do.
technology changes
Right.
so
Yeah.
much. But I've kind of gathered these things with me, these tools in my toolbox, and I have a pretty good toolbox. And some of it's been mistakes, right? So clients that I've taken that I haven't done things, correctly or as best as I could, and I try to learn from those and, kind of come, at the okay, next time I'm going to do this differently, and that's been helpful too.
That's great. Now, obviously, when you agreed to be on this podcast, you knew it was about storytelling. Another question we always ask our guests, we have our specific take on storytelling, and if you're watching this, you can see my book behind me. Uh, what's your take on storytelling?
I found not even so much related to business, but I can definitely see in my personal life
Mhm.
that storytelling is so important, and bringing concepts down
Mhm.
to where I am versus where another expert is, right? So, a lot of times in our industries, we've been in it a long time. We're throwing out acronyms and all the things, and we're just like boom, boom, boom. This is what we have to do. But like, you really need to connect with people first,
Yeah.
and then meet them on their level,
Yeah.
and then kind of take the, guide them along to, whatever service you're offering. So I think it's so important for that initial connection. We have so many, it's such an information age, so many people and so many things, and you really have to be able to kind of filter through that. And I think storytelling is the way to do that. So the way to connect with someone, and
Mhm.
then you get to know and like and trust them, and then engage their services or whatever it is.
That is so true. And for the audience, we had Natalie Doyle Oldfield on a recent episode, and we talked about trust. And that is the path that you hear it over and over again in business. They have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. And for sure, your online presence, I think today especially, is a big part of that, right? So, Renee, a question for you. A good friend of mine, and this may change with AI, but he always says that Google can't see pretty, right? So I don't want to for a second diminish the importance of the technical aspects of having a great online presence. And I'm sure you could talk for hours about how simple things like H1 tags, et cetera, keywords can make a huge difference. And, maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But in your view, where does the content, the story of the website fall? When I speak frequently on storytelling, I say about the digital presence, and this statistic may be old, that Google says that people will stay on a business homepage for about 3 seconds. And if they don't like it, they're out. And, I will tell people when I speak that this is why you got to start to tell your story right away. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I will agree that Google can't see pretty. However, Google looks at what people are doing. So when you go to a website, it is the content. Yes, like does this make sense? Is it easy to read? Do I understand what they're doing? I see so many people lately, with these elevator pitches, these mission statements, Uber pitch, whatever it is, where like I don't know what that means. What are these words? I understand the words you're using, but I don't understand them in that concept.
Yeah.
So, or in that sort of framework that you're putting them in. So, I
Mhm.
do think that design is important, but really that content, if I don't like what you're saying or I can't easily digest it,
Yeah.
I'm moving on. We just don't have time, I think, or the attention spans, to really try to figure out what people are trying to tell us.
There's no doubt about that, Renee. We've got a tsunami of information these days. And one of the things we believe at our firm is that it's really important to be crystal clear in your story and start to share it right away in your online presence. And folks, we're going to dig into that when we come back right after this quick break. Folks, welcome back to this episode of Storylines Live, where we have Renee Morozowicz, sorry, Renee, here. She's an expert in developing your online presence, especially websites. Renee, we want to really talk about how you help your clients. Can you give our audience kind of a sense of what you feel is your greatest value in working with your clients?
Yes, I definitely can do that. So I really like to focus on a smaller business where there is someone, kind of like a stakeholder, right? So somebody who's really interested, not just kind of like a marketing person somewhere else, because I feel like they can really see the benefits and, the helpfulness that I bring to the table. So I help clients, build websites, rebuild websites, but I really like to help people maintain what they have and grow. So I don't like whenever people feel overwhelmed. So sometimes when people are starting or going along, they're like, oh, I have to blog and I have to have videos and I have to do social media and I have to write a newsletter. Like, I really like to be able to help people um, approach that in a doable way. So,
Sure.
what can they do? What works for them? And kind of really just be a partner. Some of my clients will email me like, "Hey, Renee, what does this email from Google mean?" So, I really just like that people are comfortable asking me questions, and I like when people take my advice too. Because I feel like that helps them move forward in their business because that's really what I am looking for. I'm looking to help you so that you find me so valuable that you recommend me to all your friends too.
That's great. Now, how does that make you different from all of those other people out there who compete against you and claim to do the same thing?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of us do similar things, right? So some people work with a bigger company or they have people on their team who do all, different things, right? So they have an SEO person or whatever. And I think those are, like an agency. So I think those can be great fits for some companies, but I think, a slightly smaller company, is really where, there's a great opportunity for us to work together. I have heard a lot of things from clients over the years, people who are looking for a new web developer because they haven't heard from their old one. They don't know what their existing web developer is doing. They're not as responsive. So I am super responsive, not so much on the phone, but email me anytime, day or night. I will get that. I will respond, in a timely fashion. And really just kind of helping people with that peace of mind, right? So I keep an eye on things
Mm.
even whenever they're doing something else, backups, all the things like that, monitoring uptime and things that they don't even know about and don't even really have to know about. So sometimes I won't even let the clients know that something has happened because it's really not a big deal. But when something is a big deal, like, hey, this is something that I need to put on your radar, so that we can talk about a path forward. So really just keeping an eye on things so that they don't have to worry about it.
Right. I mean, most people don't want to know how the sausage is made, right?
True.
They just want to enjoy the benefits of the sausage, right? You know?
Yes, yes.
So that's what your clients want. Renee, what gives you the most satisfaction in the work that you do?
I really like when things are clear enough to know that I am meeting expectations. So I've worked in some places before and had some experiences where the expectations weren't very clear.
Mhm.
And I struggle with a situation like that because I don't want to bring you something that you're not going to be happy with. So that's why I feel like technology is a great fit for me because it's not so much like how does it look, it's how does it work?
Mhm.
Does it do the thing that it's supposed to do? And I feel like whenever you task me with something, hey Renee, I want to, have an automatic email go out when I publish a new blog post. It's very clear when I have done that. And as I have met your expectations, you are then a happy client and you are ready for the next project. You're, like I said, ready to recommend me to someone else. It is, it's clear for me. And I like that quite a bit. I really struggle whenever expectations are not clear. I think I know what you might want. I do something and then you're like, oh, that's not really what I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's I like to take the time ahead of time to really sit down and say, okay, what is it that you are looking for? What is your vision for it? What do you think is going to happen? Like, let's talk it out, let's plan it out, and then let's execute it. And then, we're good and let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you were sharing that, Renee, I keep thinking about, you mentioned acronyms and terms. There's this one in web development, UX, user
Hmm.
experience, right? And a lot of people think that just means pretty, which
Hmm.
certainly a good-looking website in terms of seeing it, that is a component. But your point is the functioning and the goals that you want to accomplish with your online presence are just as important, maybe more important, right?
Right. Like I talk a lot about like your contact form, for example.
Yep.
It's really important to test that contact form out now and again. It's really important to make sure that somebody is helping you make sure that those emails are delivered to you. Those are leads,
Yeah.
for the most part. Sometimes they're spam. Filtering out the spam, that's another thing. But a lot of times those are leads. You want to get those messages so that you respond in a timely fashion. So I find that, those things are, yeah, more important than maybe an image, do I like this image or that image or, other things like that. I'm a little bit biased, but I think that, the functionality is very important, that your website is up. I had a client last year and they were working with someone else and they're like, yeah, our website goes down, for a while, once a month. Why? That's not acceptable. Like that's not,
It's
we
not.
can do better.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You and I didn't talk about this in our pre-interview, but I feel I would be remiss if I didn't just ask you as an expert in this arena that two-letter uh, AI is everywhere.
Mhm.
So could you perhaps share with our audience just sort of some top-line thoughts you have about the impact of AI on websites and online presence? What are you seeing?
Yes. So for my clients that are not using AI but who are interested in it, there are a couple quick things that I have shared with them, that they could try. So for example, I have clients who will, have content for a page, but there's no meta description, right? So you can tell ChatGPT, "Hey, here's my page. Can you write me a meta description?" So that's something very small, very easily achieved. It's clear,
Hmm.
it's helpful, it's not time intensive and so on. So for things like that, I'm not a super early adopter, but I'm okay with things like that. Asking Google to, or I'm sorry, asking ChatGPT or, another AI to create a website for you. I don't think we're there yet because I think that we're talking about like heading one tags and things like that. I don't think it's really up on best practices and making sure that the color contrast is good, making sure that the font size is appropriate for your mobile device. Like I don't think it's quite there, and I do think that those are important things. So that's if you have the budget, hiring someone to help you who knows about those things, I think can be only helpful for people visiting your website. So like if the contrast isn't good, if the font size is too small, people might bail. That you could lose out on a potential client or customer. So, I see some value in AI, but I'm I lean more towards let's let some other people, test it and work it out. And, some people are really into it. Like, we'll see what it's doing a little bit later. Although I did just get an email this morning from someone whose list I've been on for a long time, and he was using it to write some code. And I think that that can be helpful, but I feel like you have to know what to ask it, right? Like you need, like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for you to do. So I don't think that it's just going to create the websites and take over. Like you have to tell it what you want to,
Yeah.
and maybe you'll get it or close.
Renee, in our end of the business, this is true as well. I think a lot of research, um, outlining,
Hmm.
investigating concepts, it's great for that. A friend of mine, Ginny Dietrich, she runs the Spin Sucks blog, which is one of the top 5 marketing blogs in the world. She says that AI is like a smart intern. And what she means by that is that, here's somebody, AI, who's eager to please,
Hmm.
but doesn't have a lot of experience in the finer points of what you do, right? And that's really
Right.
your point. It would be wrong to say, at least at this point, we'll see where things go, write me a novel or
Hmm.
do some heavy duty content creation. And in your end of the business, it would be wrong to say, okay, make me a website,
Hmm.
soup to nuts. We're just not there yet, right?
Well, it's also very generic. So, maybe it creates you something that mostly is okay, but it doesn't have your story. It doesn't have your
Yeah.
lived experience unless you give it a lot and maybe it helps you polish that up. Okay, maybe. But I think it's missing that human piece. It's why some of the images that it creates look a little bit weird. It's
Yes.
missing this like, personal, aspect, I think.
Yeah, it's still, and the whole image thing is another, I like dogs and I play bass in a band. So I've tested, my test of the image creators is make me a yellow lab playing a bass guitar.
Hmm.
You know, the some of them are kind of okay, but it's like a bass guitar has 4 strings, and I'll get back this beautiful image with 3 strings, or
Yes.
not
Yes.
enough tuning pegs, or there's
Yes.
something wrong with the dog, or
Yeah.
it's not there yet. So, but
Yeah.
it's intriguing, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard there was kind of like a bandwagon a little while ago that you could ask ChatGPT to create a little action figure of you
Yes.
and with some props. So I had it do one for my son who plays the trombone, and it kept making the trombone wrong. And I was getting kind of mad at it. And I was like, stop making the trombone. The trombone is not correct. Like, so yes, I feel a little
Yeah, I
frustrated
had
that
the
it's,
same problem. I'd
yeah.
say, okay, they gave me the Labrador Retriever playing the bass, and in the back there was a drummer, and I said, great, just remove the drummer. So the
Mhm.
next image I got was a drummer and no bass guitar.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And you have to very specifically say keep everything else the same. So
Yeah,
it's not as like breezy, I think, as people are making it out to be
that's right.
either.
So folks, don't use AI to make your website. Reach out
Yes.
to Renee.
Yes.
Speaking of which, Renee, how can our audience find you?
Yeah, so I am online. And you can put this in the show notes. It's reneemorozwitch.com so people can see it. And on some of the socials too, LinkedIn, I would say would probably be a good one. Also at my name. Not hard to find because my name is not super common. So those would be the best places.
You and I share that, although I
Yeah,
have as much trouble with my last name, but fewer letters. There you go. You don't have to have a lot
yeah,
of letters to have your name screwed up, right?
that's true. That's true.
Renee, it's been such a pleasure to have you on Storylines Live. Thank you for doing this. I believe our audience is going to benefit immensely from your expertise. And I want to say thank you to the audience. Thanks for being with us for this episode of Storylines Live, the only podcast that explores the power and the meaning of the most important story in business, the one that answers why somebody would buy from you, work for you, or invest in you, your capital S story. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Storylines Live.